Trump was indicted while campaigning, it was supposed to destroy him. The orders he gave to hide classified files, discrediting the investigation. For 2 years, while Trump attacked him daily, that testimony cannot be spun by Fox News. And what followed exposed how justice itself was stopped. Under oath, legally binding, historically permanent, forever. Good morning. Here is what just happened in Washington.
The most culpable.
9 hours of testimony. One question Republicans never wanted answered.
For his benefit.
4 words that detonated a political myth. When asked whether the evidence against Donald Trump meets the standard for criminal conviction, Special Counsel Jack Smith didn't hedge. He didn't qualify. He said, yes. Unequivocally, yes. That is the beyond a reasonable doubt standard. The bar used to send people to prison for life. Smith testified under oath, under penalty of perjury, on 2 separate federal cases. After 1,200 witnesses, years of investigation. This wasn't a hearing, it was a declaration. And what followed exposed how justice itself was stopped. 4 hours into the hearing, Democratic ranking member Jamie Raskin asked the question Republicans were terrified to hear. Does your evidence meet the standard for criminal conviction? The room went silent because prosecutors never answer this question publicly. It crosses a line. It declares guilt before trial. Smith paused, not from uncertainty, from the weight of what he was about to say. Then he answered,
The evidence here made clear that President Trump was, by a large measure, the most culpable and most responsible person in this conspiracy.
Beyond reasonable doubt. That's not probably guilty. That's the standard that sends people to prison for life. But he didn't stop there.
The decision to bring charges against President Trump was mine. But the basis for those charges rests entirely with President Trump and his actions, as alleged in the indictments returned by grand juries in 2 different districts.
This is not legal hedging. This is a prosecutor calling a former president a criminal on the record, under oath, forever. Now, Trump's defenders scream, if the evidence is so strong, why isn't he in prison? Simple. Judge Aileen Cannon postponed the case involving these documents for 18 months. The Supreme Court established presidential immunity. Trump won the election and ended the prosecutions against himself. This is not an efficient justice system. This is a justice system being killed by the very people it tries to hold accountable. Here's where it gets delicious. This testimony wasn't supposed to vindicate Smith. It was supposed to destroy him. Jim Jordan and MAGA Republicans spent weeks preparing the perfect trap. Grill Smith for 9 hours, catch him in a lie, get him to admit political bias, create Fox News soundbites discrediting the investigation. They studied his past testimony, analyzed his body language, prepared hundreds of gotcha questions, and it exploded in their faces so spectacularly that by hour 6, Republican committee members were visibly squirming. One GOP aide was overheard after, "We wanted to break him. We couldn't even crack him. Every question we threw, he had an answer. Every trap we set, he walked around." But here's the most damning part. Jack Smith requested a public hearing. Cameras rolling, no time limit, complete transparency. Republicans refused. They demanded it be behind closed doors. Why? Because they knew that if America saw Smith calmly refute Trump's defense on live television, it would be a political nuclear bomb. The goal is never the truth. The goal is restraint. And even in a closed room with only hostile interrogators, Smith's testimony was so persuasive that the leaks are now destroying Trump, not Smith. But here's what should terrify you. 18 hours before testimony, Trump's DOJ sent Smith a letter gagging him from discussing non-public evidence from Mar-a-Lago. Witness testimony not in public filings. Trump's conversations ordering obstruction. Details of the fake electors scheme. The excuse? Protecting future prosecutions. The truth? There are no future prosecutions. Trump dismissed them all. This is a legal muzzle disguised as procedure. Even under oath, even in Congress, Smith was barred from revealing the full extent of Trump's crimes. The documents Trump showed unauthorized people, sealed. The orders he gave to hide classified files from the FBI, sealed. His personal knowledge he lost the 2020 election, sealed. And yet, even gagged, Smith's resought testimony was devastating. Imagine what he could say if the muzzle came off. That's why Trump's DOJ will never remove it. Republicans screamed about timing. Why indict Trump during his 2024 campaign? Isn't that political? Smith's response obliterated the conspiracy theory. The timing was dictated by evidence accumulation, not political calendars. We interviewed 1,200 plus witnesses. We fought legal battles for encrypted communications. We navigated executive privilege with Pence. Building a conspiracy case takes years. If we'd rushed to meet a political deadline, the case would have been vulnerable. I built it to win in court. That takes time. This is a prosecutorial reality that any honest lawyer, Republican or Democrat, acknowledges. The fact Trump was indicted while campaigning isn't proof of targeting. It's proof he committed crimes in office and kept obstructing justice after leaving. Want to know why Trump's attacks on Smith as a partisan hack never stuck? Because when Merrick Garland needed someone to investigate Trump, he picked a prosecutor who wasn't even in America on January 6th. Jack Smith was at The Hague, prosecuting war criminals.
And of Kosovo, Hashim Thaçi is in The Hague for an interview with prosecutors who have indicted him on war crimes charges.
He's been charged with 10 counts of war crimes and crimes.
That's the resume Garland wanted. Not a politician, a prosecutor who'd already proven he could take down powerful men who thought they were untouchable. And critically, Smith had zero political connections to Biden, no Democratic donations, no partisan history, just 25 years of following evidence. When Republicans suggested bias during testimony, Smith reportedly said, "I've prosecuted war criminals at The Hague, corrupt politicians in Tennessee, mob figures in New York. In every case, the defendant's politics were irrelevant." Only one question mattered. Does evidence prove guilt beyond reasonable doubt? If yes, I prosecute. If no, I don't. That's how I operated for 25 years. That's how I operated here. That's not a defense. That's a professional ethos, and it's bulletproof. Legal circles call Smith the Subway guy. Not a metaphor. He literally eats at Subway. No power lunches or high-end steakhouses, just a man standing in line for a toasted foot-long cold-cut combo like any ordinary guy. No government car, no security, no theatrics, just a man with a briefcase building cases brick by brick. For 2 years, while Trump attacked him daily, while MAGA demanded his arrest, while Republicans threatened to defund his office, Smith said nothing publicly. He didn't defend himself, didn't leak to press, didn't fight in media. He just kept working. And that silence drove Trump insane, because Trump's entire survival strategy is dominating the narrative, flooding zones with lies, making everything a political fight. But you can't win a media war against someone who's fighting in courtrooms, not on X. And now that silence is broken, not with a press conference, with 9 hours of sworn testimony that will outlive Trump's presidency. Here's what matters most. For 2 years, DOJ rules prevented Smith from publicly defending his work. But now, subpoenaed by Congress, under oath, he finally had a legal forum to speak. And what he delivered was the most comprehensive prosecutorial defense in American history. Legal historians are calling this testimony one of the most important statements ever made, not because of new revelations, but because it establishes a permanent record. When future generations ask, was Trump really guilty or was this political, they'll have Jack Smith's sworn testimony. That testimony cannot be spun by Fox News, cannot be erased by executive orders, cannot be buried by DOJ memos. It is sworn testimony, under oath, legally binding, historically permanent, forever. Within 72 hours of the hearing, over 40 former federal prosecutors, including Republican appointed U.S. attorneys, issued statements backing Smith. One former GOP/prosecutor, if Jack Smith says evidence meets beyond reasonable doubt standard under oath, I believe him. That's not a statement prosecutors make lightly. This is the quiet consensus among legal professionals. the evidence against Trump is real, substantial, and legally sufficient. The only question is whether the political system will ever allow it to be tested in court. My friends, sit with this infuriating reality. Jack Smith built evidence-based criminal cases that meet the standard for conviction. He followed every rule, respected every procedure, and none of it mattered. Not because evidence was weak, but because Trump weaponized delays, exploited court appointments, and reclaimed power before justice could be served. This isn't the rule of law. This is the rule of power. But here's what Trump cannot erase. The evidence still exists. The testimony is recorded. The grand jury votes are documented. Trump escaped legal accountability. But he hasn't escaped historical judgment. That's not justice, but it's truth. And truth outlasts power. The record is clear. The testimony is sworn. The evidence is documented. Jack Smith just proved under oath that Donald Trump is guilty of federal crimes. The only question remaining is whether guilt even matters when power can simply erase justice. That's the truth Smith's testimony forces us to confront, and it's a truth that will outlive us all. So what do you think? Does sworn testimony from a war crimes prosecutor prove Trump's guilt, or does it just prove that in America, evidence means nothing when you have enough power? The truth is on the record. What we do with it will define whether we're still a nation of laws or just a nation where laws don't apply to those who make them.